I feel like a lot of the talk with Cade is so interesting because when he's healthy, people are like, he's an all-star, he deserves a max contract, blah blah blah. This is the Pistons' number one option or the future. I don't know why anybody would ever question Cade. And then the same people, the minute he has a stretch of like 4 or 5 games where he can even put up like just 25-7 or something, and they go, "Oh man, yeah, I think Cade's just a Robin, guys. Like I feel like we don't have a Batman yet. Like I feel like he's just a sidekick and this and that. It's so inconsistent that like there's been this whole discourse of does Cade deserve a max contract? Does he not deserve a max contract? I wouldn't pay it. I feel like it's not even a question of if he deserves a max contract, but I would like for the talk to remain consistent at least, because if you're gonna say Cade's the guy for the Pistons and he's gonna lead them into the future, you can't be just a couple weeks later being like, oh yeah, no, I'm not gonna give him the max. Like I'd like for it to stay consistent.
It's so funny you said that because someone actually asked a question about that, and it was Derek saying like, "Are you comfortable giving Cade the max this season?"
Yeah,
five for 20, 5 for 225. In your opinion, like, yeah, I would feel fine giving him the max. I already know Cade is getting the max, just given the Pistons' history with
right.
bad. I'm not gonna say this is a bad contract by any means, but I mean, you can go back, and the same people that have given contracts like an Andre Drummond contract are still in the front office. You got guys like when we traded for Reggie Jackson and everyone was like freaking out, like, I can't believe we gave Reggie Jackson $80 million. Like right now, that's like a freaking bargain if you get a guy for $20 million.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with getting Cade the max because to me, I think his talent over a 5-year period, like a rookie scale max, it's not that big of a deal, especially with the CBA going up, Zariq.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, if he's injured and he's in and out of the lineup and he can't play more than 50 games a season, then you can have those conversations. But for right now, I think most Pistons fans would be willing to keep Cade Cunningham to give him that max rookie extension. Just wanted to kind of talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, to add on to that just a little bit, I feel like Cade is someone who will undoubtedly get that contract, and I feel like it is deserved. I mean, right now he's not as explosive, right? But like it's a really small sample of games compared to the amount of games where he overall has looked really good. And when you consider the age, you consider the fact that this is technically his second season, I really feel like it's no question. He was the number one pick. He is this team's franchise guy, whether some people like it or not. He is the franchise guy. And it's the way it is. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's actually a great thing if this team has a guy who they believe in enough that they are comfortable giving him a 5-year, $225 million. I think that's a great sign for the direction of this team. I know they're not great right now, but I think the direction of this team, the fact that you can have a guy who I think will be 22 when he signs that contract this offseason, you have a 22-year-old that's worth that much means you're doing something right. I know that like overall the direction of this team this season has been really poor. I'm very aware, but think about the context of the Pistons just a couple years ago where your young guys were not getting second contracts. I mean, Isaiah Stewart, we talked about him earlier, was the first Piston draft pick in the first round to receive a second contract since Andre Drummond. It has been that long. So the fact that you have a guy on your team who's young and is worth a max is a great sign. Now, if you can just build a team around him and get a system around him that really works, that's perfect. That's great. But I think it's not something that Pistons fans, the discourse kind of just has to end because it's happening one way or another. And I also know that Cade, I know this for a fact, Cade is someone who's really valued around the league. And let's just say, hypothetically, that the Pistons and Cade were to, just like, all right, well, like maybe we want to move in another direction. I know for a fact earlier this season, now I'm not, the Pistons did not entertain this at all. Cade is very much their franchise guy, but the Pistons did get offers for Cade. They turned them down very quickly because Cade's untouchable. He's their number one guy. But the offers they got were pretty substantial. So Cade is a guy who's not only valued across the league, he's valued within this organization. And I feel like if he continues on this course, there's nothing to worry about in terms of contract. And I don't think, for the context of getting clipped, I hope people realize I'm not saying he's going to ever get traded or anything like that. I'm strictly just saying that in the context of he's extremely valued across this league. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had heard similar things to what you were saying. And to even add more context, I mean, the Houston Rockets were willing to move on from Jalen Green this year. Like, that's the number 1 and number 2 overall picks from a few years ago.
Right.
And they're valuable players. I think sometimes when Pistons fans watch Cade Cunningham, they kind of feel underwhelmed in a sense because he's not like that uber athletic guy. He's more of a methodical player that kind of plays at a slower pace. And he, like I said, he's not like a Jaden Ivey, for example, where Jaden Ivey, I feel like, could be on SportsCenter every night with a highlight dunk or something crazy like that. But I do think the Pistons, value him. I've told people on this podcast, he's your franchise player.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, he's your franchise player. And I'm glad you brought up the Andre Drummond thing because, like, I was looking back, like, the last 10, Detroit Pistons draft picks, and I was just like, man, this is no wonder we're in the shit that we're in right now. Like, we just did not draft well under Van Gundy and Joe Dumars. But I know Pistons fans are always going to have kind of like criticism with Cade Cunningham, and it's understandable because they haven't won a whole lot under the Cade Cunningham era since they did draft him. But at the end of the day, that has more to do with the front office and what you're building around him. Like, Joe Harris is not going to help like Cade Cunningham for all intents and purposes. Like, you actually have to get him some players that complement his game and not make his life more difficult.
For sure.